Hello. I just wanted to hop in here for a quick intro and say that me, Ben, and Charlie actually recorded the whole MCU. We did all of the MCU, but it turned out to be like 3.5 hours long. I didn't want to put out a 3.5 hour long podcast or video, so I chopped it up. This video you're about to watch is only phase one and two. I think I'm going to chop up three and then four and drop those as single episodes. Um, but I wanted to get phase one and two out there. I'm hoping to get phase three up by next week for sure, and then maybe phase four next week also, if not the week after. But yeah, so this is what you're about to watch is phase one and two of our tier list, and I'll get the other episodes out in the next couple of weeks, just to clear up any confusion about the ending. Thank you and enjoy the video. Welcome back to the Words from the Nerds podcast. I am joined by Ben from Aspire Entertainment, and I am also joined by my co-host Cubson. Cubson, do you
What's
want to
up?
tell him a little bit about yourself and what you do?
My name is Charlie. I go by Cubson online. I just post superhero content on TikTok, anywhere ranging from Marvel to DC. It's mostly leaning Marvel right now because I don't know. I just love that side a little bit more. But call me biased, whatever you want. It don't matter. But yeah, I don't know. I've been a big fan all my life, and so I'm loving to share it all with these guys right here, and
Yeah.
hopefully you guys will enjoy that. So.
Yeah. So this is our co-host, and we have the Words from the Nerds podcast. We've put up a couple episodes. I've put up a couple episodes with Ben so far, and I'm hoping to start put up some weekly ones with Cubson in the following weeks, breaking down news and shows and movies, whatever it may be. But today we have a Marvel tier list, and the way we're going to go about doing this is we're going to rank these movies and ultimately settle on like an average between us three, and that way it's all of our tier list. It's not just one person or the others. So the way this will work is if I think Iron Man's an S tier and they think it's B or C, we'll average it out between A or B. If it's split down the middle, you understand. So let's go ahead and get into it. With our first one, we have Iron Man 1, the movie that started off the MCU. Who wants to go first?
I'll let Charlie hop on here first.
There.
Uh, Bro, okay. I feel like I'm gonna catch a lot of I don't love it as much as everybody else loves it. I'm gonna say that right off the bat. I still think it's great for what it does. Obviously, it's the pinnacle. It's the start of where we are now. You know, I have to appreciate it for that.
Yeah.
But I don't I can't in good conscience. I feel like a lot of people would put it in their S tier, but I can't put it in S tier for myself. I think it's gotta be A tier for me. Personally, I don't know, just everything that Tony goes through. Like, obviously, I know that it's great. It's cool to see him. I can't remember the guy's name in the cave. Is it Jensen? Is that?
Yeah, sounds about
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, like that whole arc that of him losing him to as soon as he gets out of the cave, like that's great and everything. But I don't know, man. Obadiah, I can't really. It's not one of the greatest villains, obviously, but it was like it was just starting it off, so you can't really blame it too much. So I'll have to put it in an A tier for myself.
A tier? Okay.
Okay.
Ben?
Yeah. I think I agree. I don't even think that's like too much of a hot take. I feel like people do praise this, but I don't see a lot of people putting it like top tier Marvel, which I don't think it deserves to be top tier Marvel. It was the start, and it's also the start of like the generic formula that a lot of Marvel films use with like the villain is just a perfect copy of the hero but evil. And I think what this film does, though, is that it does that exceptionally well. Like, it still executes that to a high enough level where it's still a very good film. And of course, it started it all. I would agree. I think it's an A tier film.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
have to agree as well. I think it deserves A tier. I do see a lot of people putting it at S tier, and I mean, at that point, you're just kind of blinded by it being the first MCU movie, starting everything off. It's a great movie, it's a good movie, but to say it's S tier, when you got a lot of these other movies here, I don't really think it's justified. So I think we can all agree that it is A tier, which is interesting because the very first one is one we all agree on. So
Yeah.
it's a very good movie.
It's a
There's
good
there's
sign.
no
It's a good
there's no
sign.
denying that. Yeah, yeah,
Let's see how long that stays.
yeah. Yeah, let's see how long that lasts. All right, And our second movie, which is probably where our agreeing ends, is the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk. Who wants to kick us off with this one?
I'll go again with this one.
All right, we'll stick
I
with
don't
that.
know, like I don't know, bruh. This I don't want to put it all the way in D just right off the bat. Like, there's things to like about this movie. Uh, I think Edward Norton did a decent job with what he was given, and I know he had his own critiques, and like there was some discourse on set or whatnot that we found out about later. But that's besides the point. That has nothing to do with the movie itself. Just I don't know, everything from like did you have to show that even if he gets too excited, like I don't know, like aroused, like he's gonna Hulk out too? Like I don't know, that was just like some cringe stuff that I feel like we didn't need to include. But it had some like I think it's the last shot of the movie. One of my like it's actually pretty cool. Like he's just like harnessing the Hulk power or whatever you want to call it, just in that cabin, just opens his eyes and it's all of a sudden just green. Like that was really cool. And like the Abomination fight. Honestly, a pretty good fight as far as early MCU goes.
Oh yeah.
But I wasn't very interested in his love life with Betty and the hate that her dad had for him. I kind of felt like obviously like about it from like comics and TV shows and stuff, but just it wasn't quite set. It kind of just felt like they threw us in there, and there wasn't much to gather other than that beginning sequence of, oh, this is how he became Hulk. And I believe Betty got hurt or something in the process. And so that's why he hates him. I'm not sure, but I'll put it in C tier for to be a little bit nice.
Okay. I feel like this is a good sign. Okay. This is actually good. But yeah, I agree with like everything that was said. Just to like relate it honestly to Iron Man is like, they went for the formula again, just an evil version of the hero, but in my opinion, just less interesting and less well executed than the first Iron Man. I do think this is a really overhated movie. And honestly, I think a lot of people just like neglected to even watch this film because of the hate that it got. And yeah, I think it's still like an enjoyable film that has like enough where it's still decent. And I don't like ever hate rewatching this film. So I'd go C tier as well.
I agree. I'd have to go C tier as well. I mean, like you said, it sticks with the Marvel formula that Iron Man started, just in a more boring way. At least Tony Stark has some personality to him, like something to make you laugh and like roll your eyes at. And like here, it's just like, I won't lie, the fight with Abomination is amazing, and we get like Savage Hulk. I'll take this version of Hulk over the one we have today, and not even talking about Professor Hulk, even like our MCU Hulk. I mean, I love this version of the Hulk better, but that doesn't mean that it's an A or B tier movie. I have to agree and put it at C tier for those reasons. I mean, y'all hit the nail right on the head.
Wow, we're in agreement again.
There we go. All right, Iron Man 2, the sequel to the movie that kicked it off. Charlie,
I want to go first. I want to go first on this.
Go ahead.
I gotta go first on this one. I'm sorry. It's been one of my hottest takes for a long time that this is like a bottom 3 Marvel movie. I am not a fan of Iron Man 2. I think that it just like, especially compared to the first one, it's a terrible follow-up. I think like the villain is super forgettable, and they make the character of Tony Stark even less likable in this movie. And probably the worst final battle of any MCU film because it's so quick. It's like literally just a couple minutes long. And like the last time I watched it, I was just shocked because like the final battle starts and there's like some really cool shots with like War Machine and Iron Man, but then it's like over like instantly. And I'm just always underwhelmed, especially compared to the first Iron Man film. I just felt like it was a terrible continuation of the series. I'd go D tier. This is a bottom 3 Marvel film for me.
I agree with that. I really don't think this did anything to further Tony's story. I feel like he was in the same spot as in the beginning of the movie as he was at the end. I feel like aside from cool action sequences and like the beginnings of some MCU humor type things, there's not much substance to this movie other than the addition of Black Widow, obviously. That's hugely important for everything else to come. And I think what her especially her first fight sequence was
Yeah.
absolutely great. I still think it's fantastic. But again, that just leans to the aside from cool action, there's not much to this movie, and I actually agree with that. I would put it in D tier.
What about Elon Musk?
Yeah, we got Elon Musk cameo.
That's true. That's true.
No, but yeah, I agree with that, and especially, I mean, you're introducing the first female Avenger hero, and you over sexualize her, and it's like I'm putting it at D tier. There's not anything to really like take away from this movie. It's a boring villain. He's not interesting. Doesn't do anything for Tony Stark, and yeah, I mean, y'all continue to hit it all, on the head with, in regards to these movies, and I didn't like Iron Man 2, and if Iron Man 3 either, but we'll get to that as well. So
We'll let you go first this time, Aiden.
yeah, I'll go first here because we got Thor, and I think I'd put Thor at high C. Um, it was it was a good movie, introducing Thor, but the blonde eyebrows of Chris Hemsworth, if that wasn't like enough to take you out of the movie, I mean, Jane Foster isn't all that interesting. Their romance isn't anything to like be super like excited about. It's kind of just like boring and like forced. The villain was kind of just that Sentry type villain. It was just like it was just boring. It was just weird to look at, and he was just like really OP, and then out of nowhere, just like kind of got his power skills like lowered. So it's an all right movie. I wouldn't put it at D tier, but I'd definitely put it at like a high C.
I'll let you go in, Ben. I'll go
Okay.
last.
I think that I wouldn't even go high C. I'd probably go low C. I actually like this one even less than Incredible Hulk, just because of the fact there's two main things. I think it's so boring. Like, it's such a boring film. There is not a lot of redemptive qualities that just make it entertaining. But the other thing is I feel like the start is so interesting with a lot of the stuff that's happening on Asgard, and then having like the rest of the story basically take place on Earth is like a terrible choice in my opinion, and it takes away all the interesting aspects that could be in the film. So I just think because of like those reasons, I can't even put it above Hulk. Like, I dislike this movie and I don't think it's great, but I would still put it in C tier, but I would not put it above the Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Interesting.
I actually really don't like this movie like at all. I would put it below Iron Man 2 in D tier. I think Iron Man
Wow.
2 has those action sequences, and for me, Thor just lacked them. Obviously, it had the cool scenery of Asgard, seeing it for the first time, but when you look at every other aspect of the film, again, this is comparing like further into the MCU, but this is Loki at his worst. Like, we had like Loki's still decent here, but it's at his worst that we've ever seen him be at in the MCU before. And there just wasn't anything for me to latch onto. Like, the probably coolest part of the movie for me was just when Thor gets his powers taken away and Odin is just screaming at him and whatnot. I struggle to remember anything else about this movie other than
Yeah.
Natalie Portman shining for a little bit, maybe The
Yeah.
Warriors 3, but yeah, there's just nothing really memorable about this movie.
Interesting. So we got low D tier, we got high C, and low C.
I think it averages to a low C because we're both in
Yeah.
the C tier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a low C is acceptable. I'm fine with that. All right. Captain America: The First Avenger. I guess I'll start us off. I like this movie. It's like it's fun. I like seeing Captain America's origin story. I like seeing, skinny Steve Rogers, even though like the CGI isn't all that great. And then seeing the transformation of him. I like the him and Red Skull's kind of, it's what Ben brought up in the beginning. It's just like a more evil version of the hero. But Red Skull is just such like a different type of villain. And other than what we see in like some of Thor and the Hulk, this is the first time the villain is kind of like not human, I guess, if you want to say that. He has a red skinny face, and he looks really cool, and the story beats they hit in this movie. I think it's interesting. It's a fun little, old timey looking movie, and I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was bad. I like seeing Steve wake up from being frozen and his whole scenery being changed, and setting up his story for Captain America 2. So I didn't think this movie was that bad. I'd probably put it at uh, mid B.
Okay, yeah. I agree with that. I put it in the B tier as well because I definitely think it's better than Hulk and Thor. Um, I do think it was a little bit slow to start. For
Yeah.
me anyway, it felt like it took a while for us to get to the point where Steve finally gets the super soldier serum, and then the ball finally gets rolling. I think it did great things to set up Bucky's arc at the beginning, as well as Steve's arc. Just going from selflessness to selfishness. Like, obviously we see him in his full selflessness mode right now, and he's just like jumping on grenades and stuff, which is cool to see. But it still just lacks more depth from both the villain and Steve himself a little bit, for me to be able to put it higher than the B tier. It's just kind of all right, and it's gotten better with age, because before I probably would have put it in the C tier back when it first came out, but I think it's grown on me a bit, so I'll put it in B tier as well.
Nice.
Okay. I think this is probably one of the more overrated Marvel movies. Definitely not the most overrated, but I see a lot of people who adore this film. I don't see it. I think my biggest issue is probably the pacing, especially second half when they start doing like the montages through the World Wars. Like, it just feels a little off to me. But I do like a lot of the story elements, and I don't think it deserves to go as low as some of the more generic or boring films. So I would probably put it lower B, because I'm not like the biggest fan of it, but it definitely still deserves a B.
Nice. I think it's safe to say we all agree on that one. Depending on what other movies go right here, we can kind of at the end mess around with the order of it. But yeah, I mean, we got a B for Captain America. All right, the movie to kick it all off, the first Avengers movie. Who wants to start us off?
I
I'll
can
go
start
first.
us. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
Okay. I I really loved this movie when it first came out, and I still love it now. It's still really, really great what it manages to do with all these characters. But upon rewatching it, I really just struggle to pay attention beyond the point, or that's not putting it correctly. I don't really care about anything else that happens right up until everybody's on the helicarrier. Once that happens, then I'm like, okay, I'm into this more, especially when the attack on the helicarrier starts. Then I'm super into it. But I don't know, just watching them, like the globe trotting Loki around everywhere, it's I don't know, it's so uninteresting to me. But Loki, this is when we start to see him really become Loki, and like this is the best villain that we've ever seen in the MCU up to that point, at that time. But and the setup for Thanos as well towards the end, that was pretty cool. But the action, I feel like this really took this was like a turning point for Marvel as far as showcasing what they could do with true action. And I think we see later on in the MCU just what this movie did to carry that forth. So I think I would put this probably in B tier for me, above Captain America.
Okay.
Ben?
Yeah, I have a lot of interesting feelings about this one because it was the first Marvel movie that I was able to go and watch in theaters, and I watched it so many times just because of how much I loved it. And upon like my rewatch of the whole MCU, I find this one to be the most interesting because back in 2012 when this came out, this was like the big movie, whereas nowadays this would seem seemingly small compared to other Marvel projects. But I still feel like where it is strong, it is very strong, even compared to Marvel today. And I still think it has one of the best third acts of any Marvel movie, in my opinion. Like that, to me, that climax is still holding very strong to this day. And so I'm a big fan of this movie. I think it's the best in phase one. So I'd actually put it A tier above Iron Man 1.
Wow, okay. We got our first big gap. I mean, I agree. I think this movie is it starts, it's the very first, superhero team up movie. I remember I saw this movie in theaters, and I vividly remember everyone cheering when Hulk slams Loki back and forth, and that was the first time I had ever heard a cheer like that watching any kind of movie. So yeah, I agree. I mean, a really, memorable third act. We have things that are still being called back today, with Tony taking the rocket out and throwing it in outer space, and the Thanos setup, and Loki being, truly being Loki in this movie, and especially like that everyone interacting with each other. I mean, I think back to like Infinity War, seeing all of them, talk to each other for the first time, seeing Black Panther and Steve interact, and uh, Quill and Spider-Man interact, and this is where like it all started. We have banter with each other, and or with everyone in the group, and it's overall just like a very entertaining, very fun movie. I do see the kind of slow start, but overall I think it's a very fun movie, seeing our first like movies all kind of play into each other, and setting that up for the rest of what's to come all the way down to Endgame. This is kind of where it starts. I think I'd put it in A tier above Iron Man as well.
I think average it has to go below, but it's
Yeah,
still A. Yeah.
yeah, great movie. All right, Iron Man 3.
I'm out on this one. This is one of
Not
you
much
two.
to say. I
Do
mean,
we need to say much? I
I
feel like we
don't.
could just give a tier and it'd be fine.
Yeah, I think it's safe to put it right here. I think this movie. I mean, this is at least my rating of it. It's just it's not a good movie. The whole Mandarin plot twist, it was just, not needed. Killian is a horrible villain. I think his powers look goofy. He looks like a glow stick every time he ignites them, and Iron Man kind of just like leaving all his suits behind and his arc reactor behind just to pick it back up here in a couple of more movies. It's just overall not good, and I never really take anything away from this movie, and the whole last big fight with Pepper saving the day. I mean, it's a cool moment, but like she turns into a glow stick. It's just, I don't know. This movie's all over the place, and I don't really have that much to say on it.
I think it was probably like the first controversial film in Marvel where there was a very big split between people who loved it and hated it. And I will say I don't think it's worse than Iron Man 2. If I were to pick, it would definitely be above that one just
Yeah,
because I feel like that one has even less redemptive qualities compared to this film. But I do think it has a ton of flaws. I have never been a fan of this film, even though I've wanted to see that side that like the people who love it. I don't get it. I'd put it above Iron Man 2
above
though.
Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would put it above Iron Man 2 as well. I find more enjoyment in watching this movie, just for different elements, like adding in I forget the kid's name. I want to say Harry, but I don't think that's it.
I have no
Uh,
idea.
but adding him in added sort of an element of like fatherhood that Tony could apply to this kid that he never got from his own dad. So like there's some like little things in there that like enhance it for me a little bit. And I do think what they included action wise and just set piece wise was better than Iron Man 2. Like the plane sequence is better
Yeah.
than almost everything in Iron Man 2, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but for the most part, everything else with the Mandarin and the twist that I guarantee they thought was going to be so wild and we would love it, um, just it never worked for me. And so, but it's still better than what Iron Man 2 has going for it.
By the way, the kid's name was Harley.
Harley. I
Harley.
knew it was an H.
Yes.
Yeah, you
I just looked it
close.
up.
All right. Thor: The Dark World.
Okay, we're not talking about this one. Worst
Yeah.
Marvel movie,
Yeah.
bottom of D tier.
I think you
No
can
redemptive qualities, the most boring, least exciting action, most unimportant movie out there for Marvel.
It sucks that Thor's mom died, but that's about it. That's all it had
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, I
Who
kind of
who even are the
finished,
Dark
and
Elves, dog?
as soon as that happened, I didn't remember asking if she died, so I didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all you can really say. On top of that, having one of the most messiest Marvel posters of all time. I
That's
mean,
I
you
think
got like,
yeah, that's like one of the ones that
That's
like
pretty
had to have
bad.
started it, bro. Like the
yeah,
floating head type thing.
yeah, you got a whole army underneath them,
Although
and
Iron Man 2,
That's
yeah,
true, actually.
yeah, right next to it. I don't know.
yeah, I've never really understood. I know Homecoming does this too, having Spider-Man and then having him again just without his
Yeah.
costume, and it kind of does it here too. You have Iron Man and War Machine, and then you just have them not in costume. It's like, yeah, uh, some rough movies, but they ultimately lead up to my favorite Marvel movie still to this day, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And
Ooh.
I'll start this off. I haven't had this movie topped for me yet, other than No Way Home due to like personal enjoyment. But overall, as a movie, I think I'll still take Captain America: The Winter Soldier over any other Marvel movie to this day, because it's from start to finish, it's just action packed, spy thriller. We have Captain America having to go undercover and join up with Black Widow to kind of take down and Hydra and see what's going on here. And on top of that, Hydra being one of the most interesting Marvel villains and still having implications on the universe to this day. There's just a lot to love and take away from this movie. Nick Fury's fake death scene and the whole like scene with him in the room and the recorder saying like, "Hey, don't talk," like just play along. Um, Sharon Carter, even though I feel like they kind of just botched her character in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, and here she's amazing. We have the big final like battle with Bucky and Captain America and then Bucky, probably the best part of this movie and one of the biggest surprises if you didn't see it coming. This movie all around is amazing. Every time I rewatch it, I find it hard to find something I don't like with it. And from start to finish, Bucky and Cap's relationship just is one of the best parts of the movie behind the action and the plot. And so for me, I have this S tier. Personally, I have it the best, but I'm open to hearing what y'all think about it.
Do you want to go, Ben, or me? I don't care.
I'll go. I mean, I second everything that Aiden said, other than maybe that it's like the best of the best. I still think
Yeah.
that when it comes to like a standalone project solely about mainly one hero, because Black Widow's in there quite a bit, I still think that this is like the most well executed and most interesting plot that Marvel has crafted for a single hero,
Mhm.
because the like political thriller kind of aspects of this film is so interesting compared to the rest of what Marvel had done at that point. And I love it. Some of the best, most iconic action scenes. Probably my favorite suit for Cap as well. I
Oh
love,
yeah.
even though I know it's controversial that they got rid of the red, I still just personally love the look. More of the like kind of darker side of Marvel with kind of the themes of the whole movie. And yeah, some of the most iconic stuff in all of Marvel. Definitely one of the most like easy to remember films for like how much happens in it. So much is just iconic, and I love how it's so significant to the arc that's honestly at this point going to focus a lot on Bucky Barnes, which is really
Yeah.
cool. So I don't think it's quite like my favorite Marvel movie, but it's S tier.
Yeah. I'll say one thing real quick. I mean, because I totally forgot to mention probably the best, in my opinion, the best choreographed fight scene in all of Marvel, the highway scene with Bucky and Cap. I mean, rewatching that fight scene is just so pleasing and so satisfying. I mean, this is my favorite. It's definitely S tier if I'm taking it back, like taking my bias away and rating it, like as in terms of like a movie, a Marvel movie. It's not first, but in terms of like personal favorite, yeah, nothing will beat this. All right, go ahead, Charlie. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Yeah. Right off the bat, I'll say S tier. Yes. What this movie brought for me was, I feel like the twist that they wanted for Iron Man 3 is what this movie did with the whole Hydra and Shield thing. Like that was something I never saw coming as a 13-year-old kid, however old I was when I watched it. Which isn't saying much, 13 years old, but whatever, that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Everything this movie did, down to Bucky, just this want to not hurt his friend, but also like complete his mission. I like it hurts. It hurts so bad then, and it still hurts now. And like that scene up in the Triskelion, no, not the Triskelion, one of the helicarriers, we'll call him that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it hits so hard every time. And then when Cap falls, the slow mo, the music, everything is just so perfect about it. But yeah, this is like when Marvel was like breaking the mold, and I feel like that's why this movie is so beloved, is because this is like a not a turning point necessarily, because obviously Marvel's like quality has shifted up and down since then. But um, once we saw that they could do something like this, there was much more faith in them as a whole, altogether. And I'm sure this is a lot where a lot of fans jumped on, is this film here, because of what it did for Steve and the MCU. And I feel like this continues Steve's story perfectly as well. This kind of lays the groundwork for civil war in a sort of way, because he doesn't want to trust these big organizations anymore, like governments and whatnot, because he sees how they can become corrupted or just not have the best interests of others in their mind. So in the end, yeah, I think S tier is where I would put it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this does do a lot for future movies, especially Civil War, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I mean, everything this movie does is there's implications on it, in the next coming movies, and even to this day with like Falcon and Winter Soldier. And yeah, definitely my favorite Marvel movie. So right after that, speaking of breaking the Marvel formula, we got Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Who wants to kick us off?
I'll start off with this one, dude. I love this movie so much. We Are Groot still hits me like a truck every time I hear it, dude. I
Yes.
can't help but tear up every time that scene comes on. It's just Vin Diesel in a recording studio, but then I can't. We Are Groot, like it's
Yeah.
perfect, man. It's so perfect, down to the soundtrack. I feel like the cast was perfectly selected, and they knock it out of the park. And like James, like I've said on uh TikTok and stuff, like James Gunn is so good at making you care about the most insignificant things that you thought you would never care about. And you see a tree wipe the tear off of a CGI raccoon, and I'm sitting here bawling, dog. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy what this is able to do. And it was the MCU's first foray into like the cosmos,
Yeah.
and it was beautiful. All the scenery that we saw, down to like I think one of my favorite shots is Peter and Gamora when he like jumps out of the ship because he's like trying to save her or whatever. That shot of all the ships around him, like the green in the background, is perfect. This movie, I don't know, it gets a lot of things right, but it's obviously not perfect. There's a couple things I would have liked to switch around with Yondu in that whole situation. It kind of felt like it was put on a little heavy with like the Yondu and Ravagers. Couldn't think of their name
Yeah.
for a second. But overall, I would put this movie either bottom S tier or top A. I'll land top A. Top A.
Okay.
All right.
Aiden?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this movie, it's our first journey into the cosmos of the MCU, and what better to start it off with, one of the funnest groups that we've seen so far in Marvel with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I, one thing I love about these movies and about, James Gunn's projects is, you know, having the ability to laugh as hard as I can and cry, and just feel something with all of these movies. And, you know, typically I think a breakdance to save the universe is just kind of like eye rolly, but like in here it's just like it's perfectly done. And then following that up with the whole Power Stone sequence. I mean, yeah, this movie's great. Not only is it like visually pleasing, it's also just very good plot and amazing characters to kind of back up that plot. And so yeah, I agree. I think I'd have it at high A, low S tier, anywhere around there.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is easily like it might be one of, if not the most rewatchable Marvel film, just because there is so much to entertain you and the characters are so interesting and the emotions are so compelling the entire way through. I love this movie as well. And I also think that even if you just look at phase 1 and the couple projects of phase 2 that we got before this movie was crazy when it first came out for how ambitious and different it was for Marvel, because it was unlike anything they had ever done. Whereas nowadays, we would look at that and think that it seems pretty normal. But at the time, it was such an out there project. And I think that it was just executed extremely well. I think they did great with this one. And yeah, James Gunn is just, he's phenomenal. I think Charlie brought up a great point, making you care about what is seemingly the most insignificant characters, because we've seen that play out time and time again now through the Suicide Squad with King Shark and Peacemaker with Eagly. Like, he just does such a great job with these characters and making you feel the emotions. I think, yeah, high A is where I would go as well.
Awesome. So we can all agree on high A.
Yes, I think
Perfect.
it would go above both of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Such a good movie. So on to our probably most controversial one. We got Avengers Day and a Half of Ultron. Avengers Age of Ultron. I mean, I honestly I don't hate this movie. I don't think it's a terrible movie, and I don't see the hate on it. I think it's overhated. I think it's a very fun, very cool movie. I think the scene where they're all partying trying to lift Thor's hammer is one of the best scenes in any of these movies. We're seeing some more, building off of the Avengers and building off of what all of these characters have experienced in their previous solo films, all come together, and it all works so well, and we get the introduction of Vision, and we get a nice big final battle. I understand the hate on killing off Pietro so fast, but due to like contracts and everything, I mean they had to do it. So movie wise, I understand, but like taking a step back, it's kind of just like a nitpick. But the way they did it was kind of like lazy. I'm not gonna lie. So I mean, this movie isn't perfect. I think I'd have to put it like low B, maybe high C. Curious to see what y'all think.
Let you go, Ben.
Okay. I actually really like this movie, and I think it does get a lot of hate, but I rewatched it probably like halfway through last year, and I found myself really enjoying it. And I don't understand a lot of the hate that it gets as well. I think it's a very solid movie. I don't think that it's, like on the same level as the first Avengers film or anything. So I can understand why people would be underwhelmed by this. But I think it does a lot for the story. I mean, you brought up the lifting the hammer scene. We obviously know how significant that became for the future of Marvel, or even like introducing us to Wanda and Vision is like such important factors that I feel like when it comes to the important story moments, this film kind of nailed it. As well as like I just find it being really entertaining and seeing the dynamic of our heroes. Like, this is the last real time, I guess, other than kind of Civil War, but like throughout the rest of this series, when it comes to like our big heroes, there's either like a conflict or they just aren't talking to one another. And we see
Yeah.
that through like Civil War and Infinity War, and then the last like redemptive time is through Endgame. But like this is the last time that we're really seeing like our team all together, all on the same side. And I feel like that is such like a cherishable moment compared to where like the direction that it takes even directly after that was Civil War. So I actually appreciated a lot of aspects of this film. I would probably go high B.
Yeah, for me, I really actually have come to enjoy this movie. When I first left the theater, it was a very just kind of mid, before the term mid was even a thing for me. But I've since grown to love it a lot. Not so much to put it in A. I'd probably put it in high B just to get it out of the way. I'd probably put it in high B as well. But I just think that what they do with both Wanda and Pietro, like for the little time that Pietro's a part of it, they still manage to make me care. And when I see Elizabeth Olsen absolutely just like scream her heart out or whatever, while Sokovia is flying up in the air and just disintegrate these Ultron bots, and then later oh my god, this is actually one of my favorite scenes, I think, in the MCU, which I'm gonna probably say that a lot throughout this whole thing. But when she goes over to Ultron and then he says, Wanda, you have to get out of here, you'll die. And then she says, I just did. Do you know how it felt? And then rips his heart out. It felt like that. I was like, dude, holy shit, man. That fucking hurts. I feel for her. I feel for her. And like I don't really care for much the Hawkeye fake out. Like that was a little, I still find that a little annoying. It's like just go all the way. Like nobody cared about Hawkeye at that moment. And I will retract that statement later on when we get to Hawkeye. I have things to say, but just at that moment, I would have rather had Hawkeye die than Pietro. But everything else throughout this movie, I think what Ben said is right. Like there's a beauty to it because this is the last time the team is together. Granted, they're fighting and you see the implications of civil war starting to be put into place, which is another reason I like this movie. But still watching them all together as a family still as sort of the last time before they all do it one more time and then go their separate ways is really like a beautiful thing to see. And I think also the Rage Hulk. I guess Hulk's always ragey, but that Hulkbuster fight. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So good, so good. I still think that holds up to this day. Like that, it was incredible. Even some of the like the stupid jokes within it are still funny. It's like go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Like that still hits, man. But I think I would put it high B as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some amazing moments. I mean, yeah, like that Hulk fight and Wanda screaming, and even like the big team up of all of them, you know, fighting the Ultron bots. And one of my favorite things about this movie is getting introduced to Vision and his like powers, because just seeing Vision like phase through things and just kind of like use the Mind Stone to like shoot lasers. It's all so satisfying, and just to see them all, you know, using their powers together to fight off all the Ultron bots, like. And they can do whatever they want because they're not, you know, it's not humans, it's robots, so they can behead them if they want. They can throw their hammer and shatter them. You know, it's very cool. And I like what y'all said about, you know, it's their last time fighting together, because like, you know, after these next couple movies, things start to go downhill pretty quick. And so, yeah, it's definitely an overhated movie, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, next we got Ant-Man.
I feel like there's not a lot to say about this
one.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just, you know, a fun little family movie. I love Scott Lang in here. Paul Rudd is amazing. He's such a great actor. I think the only thing I don't like in here is what's her name? Van Dyne's hair. Compared to the Ant-Man and the Wasp, I don't really like it. But I mean, other than that, I mean, everything about this movie is fun. It's a fun, lighthearted movie. There's not much you can say about it. I do love the shrinking and the little fight between him and Yellow Jacket, you know, running around the little playscape and seeing everything all big scale while they're like, you know, this big. And I do like the nice little touch of having Yellow Jacket's his little like lasers or whatever. They're the same sound of a TIE fighter. I was just talking to Ben about this. The same sound they use for TIE fighters shooting their little lasers and everything is the same sound that they use for him. And so I thought that was a really nice touch. Yeah, it's so satisfying. I was just telling him that's one of my favorite sounds in all of Star Wars. So to see that being brought back in another, you know, fellow Disney property is really cool. So yeah, I think Ant-Man's a great movie. I love the little heist, you know, scene or little heist aspect, and the little ragtag group of criminals. So in terms of movie, I think I'd put this at a middle B, middle B, low B, anywhere around there.
Yeah, me, my opinion has dropped on this movie. When it first came out, I really, really liked it. Now I really just don't care to rewatch it. Like if I ever do a rewatch recently of the MCU, I wouldn't skip the film, but I wouldn't pay attention while watching it. It's just, I don't know. It does cool things. Like I think it was super funny with Scott's friend. I can't remember his name. Like his whole shtick of just like the way he tells stories. That's a funny gimmick, and I hope they continue it with Ant-Man 3. but I think I think it was creatively cool. Just the shrinking fights. Any time. Well, obviously he's Ant-Man. He's gonna be shrinking. But anytime that there was any cool sequence like that was creatively different, and it was cool to see Marvel play around with that world. But it didn't really. I didn't care much for it. I can't say that I cared for anyone in the movie aside from Scott. You know, I even Hank. I couldn't really care about him losing Janet.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just didn't really seem convincing to me. I will say there was the tension in the scene where I can't remember Yellow Jacket's actual name, but when he comes to their house that night, like the tension in that scene did feel real to me, and like that was a pretty cool feeling. But everything else in this movie, just aside from the creative action scenes and sequences, just didn't really do much for me. So I'd probably put it. I still would enjoy it more than Incredible Hulk, so I'll put it like top C.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like this movie. I think, just to put it simply, it's the generic Marvel formula, but it is well executed and entertaining. And
Yeah.
like, I feel like that's all it went for. And so like, it's not a standout, but it's also not a bad movie. So I would probably go low B. I definitely think it's better than some of the more like boring or even more simple like generic films. And also, just so you know, the name of his friend is Luis. And yes,
Luis.
he is amazing, and I'm pretty sure that Marvel confirmed that somewhere out there there's like an audio recording or a video of him recapping the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the style that he used in Ant-Man, and
Uh,
everybody wants them to release that so badly because that would be so cool.
It's a
So
yeah.
yeah,
must.
he's a great addition.
Yeah. I think Luis is my favorite side character of all the MCU, of all these movies. I think Luis takes the cake. Yeah,
It's a
I love
must.
him. All right. And with that, that concludes phase 1 and 2 of the MCU tier list. If you enjoyed this video, please go check out Charlie and Ben's social medias. It's all in the link tree in the bio, and even my stuff. You can find me on TikTok and even here on YouTube. And if you did enjoy the video, consider liking and subscribing. I will be posting phase 3 and phase 4 of the tier list in the next couple of weeks. So that will be out there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great rest of the day.